There was a time, a long time ago, when audiophiles in general believed in measurements. This was in the late 70s, early 80s, and there was a race to make products, specifically amplifiers and preamplifiers, that had lower and lower levels of total harmonic distortion and other forms of distortion. There was a big thing about slew rate at the time. You ever hear about slew rate anymore? Does anybody care? It was an obsession to have the best possible slew rate. So anyway, I fell for this hook, line, and sinker. And I bought an affordable preamp. It was called the AGI 511A. It looked really cool. It felt great in my hands. Did all those things. And it sounded okay. I liked it. But I was an audio salesman. I had access to a lot of cool stuff. So, and actually I bought an Audio Research SP6B. And I had a Mark Levinson, the first Mark Levinson preamp. I had a Spectral. I had a lot of really good stuff. But the AGI 511 was the best measuring one. Except that it wasn't the one that I would go to as, let's say, my daily driver. It was my least favorite preamp of all the ones that I just mentioned. It was definitely at the bottom of the pile. But it measured the best. That's where it all started for me. It was like, wait, is there a correlation between getting the best measuring one objectively, clearly a better product? For test tones and sine waves, etc., etc. But for music, not so much. It didn't score well in the music department. It didn't sound bad. I wouldn't even say, as my memory serves, clinical or hard or transistory. It didn't sound any of those things that would cross over some sort of line. No, it didn't do any of those things. It didn't do anything overtly wrong. It just didn't speak to me, you know? So I actually had a conversation with an engineer once, and he told me, a speaker designer, and he told me that in the process of designing, he's going, further and further to make it measure well. And at some point, he has a listening panel. He has other people listen to the speakers and say, so what do you think? A/B comparisons. And he had the best measuring one. He had ones that did different things. And he told me that it was rare for the people to choose the best measuring one. Now, I know that there are certain people in this industry that do blind tests that prove that the best measuring one is the one that people choose. I'm sure that happens, but not in my experience and not in the experience of this engineer. I can't reveal his name or the company that he worked for, but it was a very large, high-profile audiophile company. And he said, we have these prototypes, we make them, we say, okay, we're here. Basically, we're going for measurements here, and for here we're going for a little sweeter sound. And usually it was never the best measuring one, but to make it long story short, they almost never chose the best measuring one. But they had this, fear of putting out a product that would be measured by magazines and people on the internet and say, oh, look, it's got this problem or that problem, and, they're going to be jumped on for those issues. So that's always in the back of their mind, thinking, well, I got to deal with that stuff, so maybe I got to nip and tuck a little bit here and there, and make it sound cool, right? Make it acceptable to the measurement hawks. Now then, there are some people, which I will name, like Sean Casey at Zoo Audio. He doesn't give a crap about any of that stuff. He makes speakers. This is how we bonded in the first place. He makes speakers that sound good to him. He doesn't need a committee of people to decide. He's like, I'm going for this sound. No, it's not going to measure well, but I don't care. There's plenty of other, basically, when we had these early conversations, Sean and I, he said, there's all these other people chasing, making better measuring speakers. It's kind of covered. I can just do what I want to do. If people like it, great, they'll buy my speakers. If they don't like it, they won't. It works for me. And when you listen to a Zoo speaker, you can tell it's not going to be a great measuring speaker. It's not the flattest. It's not the smoothest. but it kicks, it has fun, you just want to play it. It's a great rock and roll speaker. Now people are telling me, hey, it's actually pretty good on classical. I never used it much for classical when I had them around here. But it does have that engagement thing really, really well. And I will link to this, this interview that Sean Casey and John Atkinson did. John Atkinson was interviewing Sean Casey for Stereophile. And in the middle of this interview, John Atkinson, who is a measurement guy, and I like John, you know that, right? John brought up this point where a long time ago he referred to this idea of having the recording of jangling keys. In other words, a keychain and you jangle it, and it makes a lot of high frequency transients, which are hard to record and very hard to play back. And I'm paraphrasing this story, but John went on to say that when he did some listening tests with that recording, that speakers that measured well at the time, and this has to be, I'm guessing, the early 80s, the speakers that measured well didn't get the sound of those jangling keys nearly as well as some higher efficiency but poorer measuring speakers, which was basically essentially going along with Sean Casey's design ideas. You know, I had this other speaker designer tell me that he never listens to the speakers as he's designing them. He doesn't like build prototypes, put them in boxes, listen to them, you know. He builds prototypes and then measures them, but doesn't do any listening until very late in the design process. He said, I don't need to listen because I have all these measurements here. I'm interpreting the measurements, and we're good. And at the end, I'll say, yeah, that's what I thought it was going to sound like. And I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I can tell. I could tell that you really didn't listen to your speakers as you were designing them. So in other words, there's different camps, right? There's guys who are seat of the pants kind of designers, where they're just going by intuition and what they know and what they hear, let's say feedback during the design process of where they're going. And they do measure, but they're not guided by measurements. And then there's the other guys at the extreme that measure, and do a little bit of listening, and then they're done. I tend to like the speakers that were designed by the seat of the pants guys. So when it comes to, let's say, the very best speakers, do Wilson audio speakers sound like Magico speakers or Spender speakers or Harbets? No, they all sound different. How could that be? If they were all getting closer and closer to being accurate or neutral or whatever, right? They should all sound more and more alike, but they don't. So let's get back to the beginning. My little AGI 511A stereo preamplifier in 1980. The best measuring preamp at the time. Fun to use, nicely built, looked cool, checked a lot of the boxes. But it didn't last with me because I got bored with it because it just sounded like nothing. It didn't have any personality. You know, that's it. Nelson Pass said many times, you know, we're in the entertainment business. You know, we're not building scientific test instruments here, right? We're building boxes that make music sound good. That's what Nelson is essentially saying, right? And I agree. That's what this is. This is entertainment. So yeah, I want to know. I do want to know. What do you think? I mean, have you ever faced that dilemma? Have you ever come face to face with that dilemma, right? You bought a great measuring product, objectively fantastic, and yet you just couldn't get into it. Or the opposite, you measured a really poor measuring product that everyone said, oh, it's got all these problems, but you liked it anyway. And of course, a lot of people are in the middle, right? That they buy things that measure reasonably well, but also sound really good, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, it's a full range of opinions of what's going on there. That makes sense. For pro audio, that's why some studios like ATC and some studios like Genelec, right? They pick their flavor that they like. My name is Steve Guttenberg, and this is still in late 2020, the Audiophiliac Daily Show, coming up on 164,000 subscribers, 31 million views. I'm big in Lithuania, in Germany, in Puerto Rico, in Canada, in Australia, in the UK, in the United States. It's a worldwide phenomenon, the Audiophiliac Daily Show, and I'd like you to be a part of it. I'd like you to subscribe. If you have already subscribed, thank you for doing that. Well, the other thing you could check out is my Patreon, which can be found at patreon.com/audiophiliac. And I will link to that below. Oh, and the other thing I'm going to link to, by the way, is I did a whole bunch of interviews with John Atkinson. But one of them, we did it inside his testing lab. And he talks about like instruments and stuff. It's kind of really nice to be inside John's head about how he approaches measuring. Well, basically all the interviews we did, I think 4 of them, were all pretty much about the same thing, measuring and correlating measurements to sound quality. Anyway, so I'll link to those below. And above, I'll put, like, actually right there, there's the one about the lab that he works in. Oh, so I got this photo contest that ends, the deadline for entries is December 23rd. You could send your JPEGs to audiophiliac@mail.com. And here are the rules. No more than 2 pictures. Please don't send me 27 pictures. I'm not going to look at them. If I open an email and I see lots of pictures, I'm not going to look at any of them. Just send 2. Pick 2 ones. They should be nice pictures, well-lit pictures, in focus pictures of cool stuff. Doesn't have to be expensive. Could be free. You could have found it on the street. That would work well. Tell me that. It could be, underwater. It could be in your bathtub. It could be on the moon. I don't really care. Just send me the cool pictures of your stuff. And if you want to be in the picture, that would be great. If you're kind of shy, you don't want to show your face, put your foot, in the picture. Put your elbow, the back of your head. You could be with your pet goat, ostrich, elephant, whatever it is. Make it an interesting picture. Don't go overboard with that other stuff. And if you want to draw it, somebody once did a drawing of their system. That was pretty cool. If you just want to draw pictures of your system, you could do that as well. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oh, and descriptions of the stuff that's in the pictures is very important, because I'll probably get it wrong if I have to guess. And that's kind of it. We got playlists here, though. We definitely have more playlists. We have playlists for interviews like the ones with John Atkinson, but we also have speaker reviews and headphone reviews and music reviews. So much. There's just so much. Over 1,000 videos on this channel. We're rounding out the end of 2020. It'll be bye-bye 2020, and hope 2021 is a hell of a lot better. I'm done. Thank you again for watching, and I really do hope, and I mean it, to see you back here again very, very soon. Bye-bye.